So then what am I doing with Sarah? Well, like I said, I'm teaching all of this to her. I'm explaining dialectics to her. I am speaking into this room, this idea that like, especially with Sarah, you know, I feel like her, like most teenagers, feel like I have to be in a box. I have to be the athletic kid, or I have to be the popular kid, or I have to be, I don't know, the kid that's into anime, or it's like I can't get out of this identity. And I'm like, why? And part of that is developmentally appropriate, right? And at the same time, like, you can show up with no makeup at school one day, and then you can show up in a dress and makeup. People might respond to you differently because they're not used to that, and it's okay. You don't have to fit in this box. You can be an introvert in certain situations and an extrovert in others, right? You could want to be with your boyfriend and know it's not the best idea. That all of these things can be true, because if you put somebody in a corner, they feel overwhelmed. And at the same time, if I can do the opposite and say, okay, what if both of these are true? Because if I only work with one and not the other, we can't get anywhere. So you want to be with your boyfriend. Let's acknowledge that. And you know it's not in your best interest. Well, now that we know those things are true, what do we do? And now it creates all this room for problem solving and possibilities, right? And now I'm out of this black and white thinking, and I have all of this flexibility. So some of the work that I do with Sarah is trying to think about other perspectives. So I use the example of like, if you saw a car accident, and we had 20 people who saw the car accidents from all different angles, sometimes we'd have some consistency and there would be a lot of different versions. Is one more true than the other? No. This is their perspective from their vantage point, and so they all are valid. So we need to create space even if we don't agree, right? And this is, so I kind of use this example, like if we could do this in politics, the world would be such a better place, because we do such a bad job of being like, this is the right way, versus kind of letting go and be like, okay, even if I disagree, if this is valid and I feel this way, now we can problem solve versus getting stuck in the rightness, right? The other thing that I think is important to share with Sarah, and what I've shared with Sarah, is suicide and self-harm is not the problem. It's the solution. That's how you're choosing to solve your problem, by engaging in these behaviors. And sometimes it maybe doesn't feel like a choice. If we focus on that, we miss the boat of what is the stuff that leads to that behavior. And so our goal, yes, is targeting the suicidality only because we want to see what led to that. And so it's getting people to think really differently about their actions and how their actions affect others, and getting that cognitive flexibility. So as you can hear in my talk, I say a lot of and. Of course I say but, like it happens, we use it in our language, and I do my best to try to use and so that we're starting to get used to it's not either or, it's and. So sometimes someone will be saying something, they go but, and I go and, so that they know both of those things are valid. So moving from the either or to both and. Like I said, practice looking at all sides. And then this one is huge. There is no absolute truth, and change is constant. So at the beginning of this course, you were a different person. You didn't have this knowledge. And so now, based on anything you've heard today, you are changed based on that information, right? And so when we think about, I use this example, and I think you guys can relate to this. You know, Sarah sometimes will get stuck on, well, I decided to stay with that guy, and 3 months later, he cheated on me. I should have known better. And I go, wait a minute. You didn't have that information 3 months ago. So that is so unfair to ourselves to say that I should have known better. When in reality, like, change is constant. So then you might have made the right decision for you. And now 3 months later, you might have made a different decision based on the facts. And we didn't know that. And so it's reminding people that we're always accessing new information. So the solution might constantly change. And that's okay. So that's what I'm kind of educating Sarah on. I'm teaching her dialectics. I'm trying to get her to be dialectical. And what is so cool is when you start seeing Sarah like say the things, like when she made the comment about her relationship with her mom, you're like, that is cool. And I would point that out, that they're starting to like really understand the language. So the last piece that I would do are the strategies. And there's tons of dialectical strategies. The one that I love the best is entering the paradox, right? It's a lot of those dialectical statements of you're not responsible for all your problems and you are the one that has to solve them, right? So it allows people to get off of the hook of like, you're right, this is not your fault and it is affecting you. So either we can be miserable about it or we can start solving the problem, right? So it now creates this space of like, that's true and we still have to work on it. Versus where I see people get stuck is like that just acceptance or just change, right? Because where we see people get stuck is when it comes to acceptance, people have a hard time accepting the things that are helpful to accept. And when it comes to change, they can be a little resistant to changing the behaviors they have control over. So I'm trying to get Sarah to see that we need to do the opposite, learning how to accept the things we cannot change and change the things we can, because that's going to lead to a life worth living. Right? It's a lot of paradoxical statements with Sarah to create movement. We'll use a lot of metaphors. We'll use a lot of dialectical metaphors. Like I used the cow and the bull earlier. We'll talk about emotions as a wave in a little bit. And then we have to structure it, right? We have to structure the session. So what does the session actually look like? Well, like I started today, we're utilizing the mindfulness skills. So we would do a mindfulness skill, kind of breaking down the what and the how skills. We would have some sort of homework. So I would say every session she leaves with something that I ask her to do, whether it's to reflect on something or an actual behavior. If she doesn't do the homework, we're going to do essentially a missing chain analysis to then see where we were missed. We'll then work on either if you do a diary card, great. If you don't, just make sure you're doing something to track the behavior that you're working on. That's going to be very important to have that data. So with Sarah, we do a behavior card. And then almost always in session, we're doing some acceptance-based strategies with some change. So doing a behavior chain, doing an exposure, doing some skills training. And then lastly, I almost mandate/recommend a DBT skills group. So if there's a financial burden or a burden to getting services, then I will teach skills in session, which I think are totally appropriate. I just think it's way more beneficial to have them in a group, especially with reciprocity between states and telehealth DBT groups. It's been much easier to find a group. And at the same time, I understand the barriers. And so if it's not working, then we settle with teaching the skills in session. And with adolescents, not something we're going to hit on today, but I would say family therapy is necessary. So having a family therapy component as well.